What is up, YouTube? Matt here with Chrome Donkey. So what are we doing today? It's going to be Project Saturday. So to give you guys some idea, we've got several things that we're going to be doing to the Jeep. So I've got it all set up and ready to roll. Got the hood back right underneath one of my super bright LEDs. If you guys haven't checked these out for your garage, highly recommend it. I'm going to drop a link in the description. So what are we doing? Three things effectively today, two of which involve the Jeep. So for starters, we're going to be installing the RIPP Performance Coil Pack system. So you can see I've got these already ready for the Pentastar 3.6. So these are really clean coils. Now I will say, for those of you who are watching the video, there's been a lot of mixed reviews on these. There's been, some people report some failures with these. I know JK Gear and Gadget's been over there, had a failure on his. I actually contacted RIPP directly and got multiple responses from them saying that there was a bad batch of coils that they identified and supposedly completely removed those from the shelf. And I've got what they refer to as Gen 2, so hopefully they fixed whatever issues that they have had recently. Time will tell, obviously. I went ahead and ordered new gaskets for the intake plenum, so might as well replace those while we're in there. These are real cheap, but something that I wanted to replace while I'm there. And then finally some new NGK Iridium plugs, and that's what they recommend going with. So that's going to be mod number one. Mod number two, you may see I've got some clear coat over here. I don't yet have my paint, but we're going to be painting the panels on the interior of the Jeep. So the red panels right now are going to be taken off, sanded down, and I'm going to paint them a much brighter red to go with the Jeep. That's kind of been one of my gripes. It's not been, really big deal, honestly, but it's been one of those things that I wish I could change. You've got red here, you've got red on the interior, and then you've got this weird, I don't know, anodized looking sort of red. I don't really know how to describe it, but it definitely clashes. It definitely doesn't match. And if you've got any other color Jeep besides red, it's great. It's a nice little trim accent piece, but with the red, firecracker red Jeep, I don't know. For me, I'm just too OCD. It clashes a bit, so we're going to paint those. And the third project, like I said, it's not related to the Jeep. I'm going to do some coax extensions so I can hardwire my home office, but we'll talk about that later. So I'm not going to record every single minute of this project. I just want to check in with you guys periodically because there's already a ton of videos on how to do both of what I'm doing today. But I do want to give you guys some tips and tricks along the way, so stay tuned. All right, guys, so here we are. Got the upper intake off. Got the plenum all taped off so nothing falls down in there. Certainly a job, but not too terribly difficult. I will say that those Christmas tree clips that you'll have to pop out, you might as well go ahead and chalk those up, as probably will lose several during this project, because I don't know if it's the heat, the quality or whatnot. I mean, this Jeep's got 11,000 miles on it, but I would say about 2 or 3 just completely disintegrated as soon as I tried to hit it with the trim removal tool. And I mean, very delicate, so just be careful with that. At the end of the day, as long as you keep the wires off the hot parts of the engine, you should be fine. But so yeah, so this you gotta love it when car manufacturers throw things in here like sardines. But now that you've got the upper intake off, you can see the coils. So we've got 3 on the driver's side, which looks like that actually might be the easier 3, and you could access the 3 on the passenger side without taking anything off. But you see that back one, it's going to be super tight in there to get everything in, but I think we'll be able to do it. We'll just have to go nice and slow and try not to damage anything. So let's go ahead and get this started. Okay guys, progress update. So here is the intake completely off. Now a couple things that I have found with removing this to hopefully share with you guys to ease the process. This piece right here, I'm going to show you here in a second what this is, but essentially I removed this before I realized it was much easier to disconnect where it connects in the engine bay. So essentially it's 3 bolts to remove this thing. I'll show you what it is. Probably something with the exhaust gas recirc, something with emissions. But the point is, these two right here with this gasket flange are much easier to remove. If you just take that off, that whole piece can come off with the intake. And right here is where it connects up. So you can see it just connects right there, and that can just hang out right there. Now, let me show you a couple things before I put the intake back on, just so you're aware. Just like, you know, props to Ben over at JK Gear and Gadgets, just like he talked about. This is no small job. You know, anytime you got to take a whole damn intake off to change plugs, you know you're in it for the long haul, right? But I've got them all in, as you can see. They look really nice. Of course, you're probably never going to see them anyway. They're going to be covered up. But make sure you obviously cover your intake ports, you know, when you're doing all this, because the last thing you want is something to go in there. And I've definitely dropped a couple things, so I'm glad that that's there. The other thing, although the passenger side is easily accessible without removing a lot of stuff, that's actually pretty easy to get to. You just take your 10 mil wrench and do it at a down angle and just come in and just ever so slightly, you know, loosen and tighten those coil packs. I was able to use my swivel 5/8 inch socket, spark plug socket that's magnetic, which definitely helps. It's got a little swivel head. I'll put a link in the description to that. Big help. The only place I was not able to use it is that middle one on the passenger side. It just, the angle, just, you simply can't get it down in there. So what I had to do is take my 5/8 inch older spark plug socket with an extension. So I had to drop the spark plug socket down there solo, all by itself, then take the long extension, connect it, and then a socket, and I was able to remove it. Now, the nice thing is, once I was able to remove it, I was able to get the plug out and all that out as one piece. But definitely, if you have an opportunity to use a magnetic spark plug socket, highly, highly recommended. The only thing I'm not a big fan of with this is it's one piece. You can't disconnect it. You know, it's designed in such a way where it's, you know, supposed to be spark plug removal only. So typically you need that long extension, which actually worked great on all but one. So my recommendation is pick up this thing, which is in the description, but also get a 5/8 inch spark plug socket magnetic solo so that you can use a combination of extensions to get to that one cylinder. So I'll link all that in the description. The only other thing I'll share is this bracket right here was a pain in the ass. I will say that some of the videos I've seen shows where you can disconnect this from the actual block and it comes off and makes it a lot easier. Honestly, you know, I could not see the bolts, so you would probably be in it pretty deep if you wanted to remove that bracket. So I just left it there, and it made tightening this guy the hardest one of the bunch. This was the hardest one to get a wrench down in there and tighten it up, but it's certainly tight. I've double checked it. So that's where I'm at now. So I'm about to put the intake back on. So fingers crossed, once I get all this reconnected, the thing will start and run, because the problem is if it doesn't, guess what? You got to disassemble the whole damn thing again. So stay tuned for more fun. All right, what is up? So good news. The RIPP coil packs are installed. The new plugs are installed. The engine is all buttoned back up and it starts and runs. Woohoo! Progress number one, that's a success, because God forbid if it didn't work, I'd have to take the entire damn engine back apart. So that was good news. All right, so project number two, as far as an update. Got the panels off, these dash panels. Got these primered up. So I'm gonna let this primer dry and just kind of see what we're working with. And then we're gonna paint. Now what I'm gonna do is on the bezels, I'm gonna paint these gloss black. So hopefully those will pop really nice. And then these two panels here are gonna be essentially bright firecracker red. So what I decided to go with paint color wise is I did the apple red gloss. I was debating between this, and if you can see from some of my previous projects, I also had the cherry up there that I was debating to go with, but to be quite honest, I almost thought that was too loud, like too bright red. So I'm hoping this apple red is going to be just about where it needs to be on the interior. So I'm going to paint all that red. I'm going to have the bezels gloss black, so I really think that's going to add a nice touch. So time will tell. Stay tuned. All right. What is up, YouTube? So this is going to be the wrap-up video of the 2 projects I did this weekend. So apologies on the audio level in the garage. Have both of them shut. The wind is going crazy today. I just wanted to give you guys an update. So this weekend, as you've seen in some of the videos that some of the footage I've been putting in these videos, we did 2 big projects. We installed the RIPP version 2 high performance coil packs, and version 2 is apparently very critical because, as many of you have commented and unfortunately experienced, the version 1 of the RIPP coil packs had a lot of duds. A lot of coils were going bad and you know, causing misfires and check engine codes and leaving you stranded. You know, I know Ben over at JK Gear and Gadgets had one fail on him when he was hours away from the house, and I was really worried about installing these based on some of that feedback. So I reached out to RIPP directly, and I was assured, and of course no manufacturer can guarantee they're never going to have failures, but I was assured that all those bad batches were pulled from the shelves and replaced with version 2. So hopefully we won't have any misfires, knock on wood. So I got all that installed, and hopefully I've shared some footage with you guys so you can kind of see what the process looked like. It was very involved just to change spark plugs, and it really makes me miss some of the old school engines, like the old Honda Civic, you know, 4 cylinders, where you just have 4 plugs right on top of the motor, where it was super easy to get to. This Pentastar, you have to remove the whole upper intake plenum, as you saw in the footage. You have to remove the coils from, you know, both sides, obviously, to gain access to the plugs, no wires. You know, so it was involved, but it was also rewarding. And, you know, this is something that, again, big shout out to Ben over at JK Gear and Gadgets. He said this, and I couldn't agree with him more. It actually lets you wrench on your motor. It actually gets you in there in the thick of things where you're actually doing real engine work in your own garage. And for me, that was rewarding, because just go slow, take your time, you know, don't get in a rush, don't, you know, yank on things before you double check and make sure all your bolts are loose and all that kind of stuff. It really was rewarding. And when you take a step back and look at it, yes, it's involved. Yes, there's a lot of really tight places that you have to come up with some clever workarounds to gain access to. But at the end of the day, it's certainly a garage project. It took me about half a day. So I got started on it roughly at, you know, I think 9 in the morning. And I was completely done where I started the Jeep and backed it out by lunchtime. So it's not the end of the world. It's not going to take you all day long unless you want it to. And, you know, there's not really anything to show you guys that I haven't already showed you on that as far as wrapping it up. They're installed. They look good. You can barely see them, though. I did install the brand new NGKs. I just felt like it would be a foolish move to have the engine that far tore down and not go ahead and replace the plugs. Now, granted, I mean, the Jeep only has 11,000 miles and the plugs were in okay, fine condition, but due to the amount of work to gain access to the plugs, again, I wanted some fresh, top-of-the-line NGKs in there, so that's what we went with. The iridiums are all pre-gaps, you don't have to mess with any of that. So all that's installed, engine fired right up, ran, purrs like a kitten, drives great. My initial perception on it is, you know, and again, a lot of this is probably psychological just because I did all the work and I made the installation. I do feel like on the low end, so when you first ease into the throttle, it does feel like there's a little bit more, I wouldn't call it torque, but a little bit more get up on the low end. You know, once you're going and once you're at highway speeds and all that good stuff, I honestly can't tell any difference. But the biggest place, again, it could be psychological, it could be the pseudo effect, but the biggest place I feel like there may be a difference is that low end. And, you know, time will tell on fuel economy. It's too early to tell. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video, maybe after a month of driving with them. Because with any fresh spark plug change, you, in theory, should see a little bit better fuel economy. So that's the wrap up on that. Definitely involved job. It's all done. I didn't break anything, which is great. So let me also show you the wrap up section on the panels. And this is also something that I think turned out incredibly well for spray paint. So let me give you guys my rhyme or reason and my 2 cents on this. Full disclosure, the only reason I decided to do this is because I actually messed up my driver's side panel. I was messing around with some stickers, they didn't work, and left a horrible residue that I couldn't get off. So long story short, I probably wouldn't have ventured down this route of painting it had I not messed up the driver's side panel, and I'm kind of glad I did screw it up because I love the outcome of this. It's really easy to gain access to these panels, so don't let this intimidate you where you're worried about removing the dash in order to do this. It's actually quite simple, and I'm not recording a full-on video on how to do it because there's already a ton of videos. But basically, you pop off your AC controls. Okay, so once you get this panel removed and the wires disconnected, you gain access to this shroud, this little rubber shroud that goes around the display, your display, right? Your actual radio display, your screen. Two screws come out, and then this pops off with clips. Then you gain access to the top screw that holds this dash in. There's one right over here where my finger is. And then this whole dash trim, this little leather dash piece, pulls out towards the driver. So it pulls this way, not vertical. And it's held in there with clips as well. Now, it's a royal pain to get it out the very first time. It's in there super tight. But once you pull this off, then right underneath this little border are the Phillips head screws that hold the dash panels in. So on this side, I think there's 4, and then the bottom of this dash panel is just held in with clips, pops right out, and you've got the full panel out. On the passenger side, the other thing that you've got to pop off, as you can see, I don't know if you can see my finger, but there's a little cover plate right here that also has to be popped off with a trim removal tool. And once you pop that off, you've got bottom screws for this, and then you'll have the same top screws once you pull this off. The only other thing on this side that you have to do is you remove the glove box. There is a yellow connector that you can't miss that's under there that allows you to disconnect the airbag. And then there are 2 13mm bolts directly up. So if you take the glove box out and you stick your head under there and look straight up, there are 2 13mm bolts. You can't miss them. They're easily accessible with a long extension. Once you pull those bolts off, that whole panel comes out. Now, some people in other videos remove the airbag from its little holder mechanism. I didn't even mess with that because it was on the bottom side of the panel anyway. And if I got a little bit of overspray around the underside edge, who cares? Never going to be seen anyway. So I left it in there and painted them all up and put them back in. I personally love the finished product. I love how, and the lighting may not be all that great since I'm in the garage, but hopefully you guys can see. I did the gloss black on the bezel, and I did the gloss red on the actual panel. Now, the only additional thing I'm going to do with these panels is on the passenger side over there, I am going to install one of those sticker templates that makes that side look like the grill on the front of your Jeep. So literally it's just a template with 7 slots, black stickers that create the grill effect on that side. I think that looks really, really cool. It's unique. So I'm going to be installing that, and then we'll chalk this up as being a done deal. So guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully the audio is acceptable and the video quality is good. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Make sure, if you haven't already, do the YouTubery, subscribe, like, follow the channel. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you'd like to see, any videos you'd like to see on the JT, I'm happy to do. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.